A dedicated transportation provider with the nearly 1,000 trucks slashed its accidents and injuries by 20%, not with new technology, but with a culture-first safety framework built around accountability, recognition, and timely coaching. Minnesota-based TA Dedicated set a wildly ambitious goal, built a system to track it, and got their entire organization pulling in the same direction. Today we have TA Dedicated Vice President of Operations Melissa Suedbeck to walk us through exactly how they did it. Welcome to CCJ Innovators. I'm CCJ Senior Editor Pamella De Leon. In this series, we profile carriers and fleets that have found innovative ways to overcome trucking's challenges. Go ahead and subscribe, and let's get started. First off, I read how you help in achieving the company's goal of reducing accidents and injuries by 20%. Can you please elaborate on this? What initiatives or strategies did you use?
So the number one focus, we want safe drivers. We want drivers that are bought into that safety culture, that mentality, that are knowledgeable, well-trained, drivers that are empowered and feel comfortable to be here. They know they're going to return to their family at the end of every day. We want drivers that are actively working to keep the motoring public safe. It's a core part of who we are, what we do. And we want drivers that have behaviors and practices that are consistently reflective of that. Secondarily, there's a cost focus. Current market conditions, cost reduction is more critical than ever. Claims cost remains a huge hurdle for carriers, and that's not going away. Hitting such a lofty target was definitely a team effort. So the safety and operations teams worked very closely, as well as our drivers being a very key participant here. We kicked off a new initiative, WIGs, which is wildly important goals. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. This centers around taking time out of the daily whirlwind, the daily grind, to ensure you're focusing on what matters the most, which we had deemed to be our accidents and injuries and reducing those. We had established clear targets, the framework around those, and wanted to bring visibility to our teams as well as scoreboards. So there's some accountability as well. The actions that drove the reductions really centered around increasing positive recognition for safe driving behavior and driver coaching. Specifically with the driver coaching piece, we were targeting our low performers, as well as reducing the time between an event taking place and the coaching that took place with that event. We found that to be the most effective, so it was fresh, top of mind for both the driver and the leader paired up with that driver. A few of the things we had pulled in as a part of that, we refined our hiring criteria, updated new hire training, and introduced on-site orientation at key locations. We also think safety can be fun. That really helps increase driver engagement, as well as with the operations and safety team. I think that's pretty basic for anybody. You want it to be fun. That helps stick with the drivers. We are currently launching a new program that's focused on monthly visits from the safety team. They're visiting our sites. There is dedicated extra time and resources going into driver recognition, contests, prizes, as well as training and coaching.
Do you mind elaborating more about the WIG process? Did you and the team face any setbacks in its implementation? When was it implemented? When did it start?
The WIG process began within the senior leadership team towards the start of the year, behind the scenes, trying to figure out the framework. What were we targeting? How do we set these metrics, these goals? Putting a lot of thought and effort into how we incorporate this across the organization. What does this look like? How do we get everybody pulling for the same goal? There were, of course, setbacks with, again, a lofty target and something rolling out across the company. There are always setbacks. A few of those, this ended up being very manual as far as tracking goes and scoreboards to start. We hadn't gotten as far as building Power BI dashboards initially. Once we were about halfway through, that came into play and was huge. That brought a lot more visibility and reducing the manual work. Also, At the front end of the year, we had a number of new systems that were being launched or installed. So it was a lot for the employees to take on at the same time. So I'd call those two things out as our biggest setbacks, but we navigated those relatively quickly and got through those within a couple months.
With all of the programs and the implementations that you guys did, can you talk about the results of that?
So obviously the big one, the 20% reduction is huge. I think a few of the softer results that I would call out, this really had a positive impact on our overall safety culture and specifically the safety ops relationship. It was fun to see that strengthen and grow, whether that was from increased site visits, communication, conversations. There were really good challenging conversations back and forth between the teams, with the drivers, and that grew. Our driver engagement absolutely increased, as well as our driver turnover. We saw decreases there as well.
Can you talk about more about the driver engagement and the driver? How are the drivers involved in this program? I know they're obviously the main stakeholders with this, but yeah, if you could elaborate on that, please.
So jumping back into two of the key actions centering around drivers, the recognition, obviously the drivers aren't the ones necessarily taking specific action. They're getting the recognition for doing the right thing. So it's the positive reinforcement. That could come in a lot of different forms. We wanted to be able to share that out across our peers, individually, celebrate that as a company. Some of those came in the form of a company-wide stand-up as well. So that recognition went out in a lot of different platforms. For the driver coaching piece, that was a little bit more elaborate. We leaned pretty heavily into our camera system for coaching. So we capture and coach everything, so when I refer to an event, that doesn't necessarily mean like an incident occurred. We could be coaching speeding events, following distance. We're pretty conservative with how we capture things. We had targeted top scores within cameras as far as our lower performers to have more in-depth conversations. Those conversations were meant to be collaborative. They're not meant to jump on and scold a driver. We want to find out what's going on, talk through it with the driver, talk through strategies, tips, what might be going on if this has been a pattern, and getting creative in what that solution is and staying close to that driver for consecutive weeks to hopefully show improvement, or if there's not improvement, ultimately parting ways, as well as the coaching within a certain time frame. So I know I had called that one out as well. That was a big one, is being able to decrease that time from an event being captured on that camera system and being able to pick up the phone or grab that driver in person and talk through that occurrence so it's top of mind. So those pairing together, again, really pulled that driver into the conversation so it was positive and collaborative, not somebody just scolding them for doing something wrong. And we had a lot of positive feedback from those drivers that weren't used to that too. And some of them, it took a little bit to get that engagement where we want their feedback. We want to have a conversation. This isn't a reprimand. That engagement is key. It's everything.
Besides the drivers, how about other teams and stakeholders within this program? What were their roles?
So our frontline teams were the ones doing the coaching paired up with our safety team. Right. So some of them were individual. Some of them were a tag team effort. We had kicked this off ahead of it starting and had run through some coaching the coaches. So giving folks some guidance, some framework, how to have that right conversation, how to frame things up. So it's setting the right tone, creating an open conversation with that driver so they're feeling welcome and will more likely engage instead of coming into a conversation again, feeling maybe ready to be scolded or yelled at, especially if it was somebody new, not used to TA and how we have these conversations.
That's it for this installment of CCJ Innovators. Check out ccjdigital.com for more trucking content from all of our editors. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll never miss a post from CCJ.